welcome back to my channel. I'm here with this week's astrology oracle for you. It is November 14th, and as always, I am using a chart for Dayton, Ohio at 11:11 a.m. And this is giving us a 22-degree Scorpio sun, a 10-degree Capricorn rising, and a 1-degree Leo moon. We are still feeling the, overwhelmingly intense, transformative, metamorphic, rebirth, death, change, all of the typical Scorpio archetypes we are still feeling from that eclipse. It has only been about a week since that lunar eclipse took place in Taurus. However, we still have Venus, Mercury, and the Sun all still in the sign of Scorpio, though they will not stay there for long because, it doesn't work like that. We're going to see Venus move into Sagittarius very soon, shortly followed by Mercury. And the Sun, it will be there next week, right? So as we are kind of starting to get to that mid-half point of the month, we're starting to see what's coming, right? And we have been so locked into fixed energy dynamic, and we have it even in this chart today, right? That Leo moon, another fixed sign coming through, Uranus in the North Node in Taurus, Saturn in Aquarius, the stellium we have in Scorpio. This fixed energy cross has just been so very activated. And so, I think that it's safe to say we're ready for something different. We're ready for Sagittarius season. We're ready to see a little bit more mutable flow state kind of vibes taking place. Now, that doesn't mean that everything's going to all of a sudden get better and become sunshine and rainbows, but maybe a little less karmic soul journey, revolutionary vibes, and a little bit more like get out there, express yourself, see the world, maybe a little bit of travel. And something that I've mentioned before in some past consultations and workshops is how, Sagittarius season really marks the beginning of like holiday season, especially for those of us in the US. So, this is really a time where we see people traveling to spend time with their family. This is something that really hits for me because next week my mom, my dad, and my brother are going to be coming into town. So the Sagittarius energy is just fully lit up. And, again, I think that we're kind of ready for it. We're ready for a little bit more flow state. Now, Sagittarius is not the only mutable sign bringing forth energy to us because, of course, we have that Mars retrograde in Gemini, which, depending on where Gemini falls in your chart, you may either be feeling super exhausted, super sick of your relationship, ready for a change at work, or even possibly just revisiting a lot of different experiences and what you've been through, especially with other people, wherever Gemini rules your chart. We also, of course, still have Neptune and Jupiter in Pisces. On a surface level, it seems like such a beautiful transit, right? It's ethereal, it's expansive, it's very dreamy, but the religious extremism cannot be overstated. I'm sorry, it just can't. And, of course, that Mars retrograde is creating a square to Neptune and Jupiter and Pisces, and as soon as we see some of that energy coming through from Sagittarius, more squares to come. But, in the meantime, what we do have going on in that Pisces space is creating a very positive and harmonious trine to the stellium that we have in Scorpio. And so, it's almost like a good reminder to look for the silver linings, right? Like, I think almost everybody that I have consulted with or have just had a conversation with as of lately, there's so many very transformative archetypes playing out in their life right now. Like, so many, again, whether it's work, love, relationships, career, everyone, even moving. I've even heard of people who've just got approved for apartments or who are, in the process of furnishing a new home. So, there is a lot of change out there. And paired with that, a lot of uncertainty because, again, we do still have Uranus and Taurus, opposite to all of that happening up in Scorpio. All of that is to say, be patient and be kind with yourself and the world. It's just, energy temperature check. It's still a little chaotic. Is it going to be a whole lot less chaotic? Right? It depends on what is happening in your own birth chart. And if you are local to the Dayton area or can make it to the Dayton area and would like an in-person reading with me, I would absolutely love the opportunity to dive into your own personal chart, and you can book a session with me at any of my upcoming appointments or even virtually. You'll just have to go over to my website and you'll find all of the information that you need there. So, all right, the cards are ready to speak. I'm getting a little jumbled in my words here, so it's time for me to tone it down. So, all right, what's gonna come up this week? This is the first card that caught my eye, so I'm gonna go with this. Saturn Return. How funny, because I literally led into this this whole moment here really thinking about how, you know, Saturn has been in Aquarius for a very long 2 years now, and I am a Saturn in Aquarius native. Although if you are 59 or 89 years old, then you are also a Saturn Aquarius native, and you are going through another one of your Saturn returns. So in our lifetime, should we be so lucky, we'll get to experience 3 of these cycles. So they're not exactly rare, but they're also not common, right? I mean, when we think of like the 27 Club, for example, you know, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, it's crazy to think that none of them actually made it to their Saturn return. None of them got to experience this cycle. And, you know, the Saturn return is really a marking of maturity, as it's indicated on this card, age. It's a call to grow up, you know, to stop making excuses for yourself, to face consequences, to set better boundaries, to take yourself more seriously, to elevate and amplify. And a lot of times with that, you know, it's Saturn, so it's not always so easy. It's not always a flow state. It's very challenging. You know, Saturn, as they say, Saturn's gifts are very hard-earned lessons, very hard-earned lessons. And anyone that has this placement, Saturn in Aquarius, to be going through a Saturn return during a pandemic, I mean, it has been tremendously impactful. Aquarius is, of course, a very humanitarian, progressive, Uranian sign. You know, it really wants what's best for the collective. And Saturn is like, let me impose some boundaries. Let me impose some restrictions on this air sign. It doesn't sound like anything we've witnessed for the last few years, does it? You know, but depending on where Aquarius falls in your chart and where Saturn falls in your chart, even if you are not a Saturn and Aquarius native, you have been under the pressure of this. Again, this has been like about a 2-year cycle now. Saturn, because of its retrograde, will spend about 2 to 3 years in every sign, and every sign comes with another Saturn return age. Next year, we're going to see Saturn leave Aquarius and ingress into Pisces. So if you are a Saturn Pisces native, your Saturn return is coming up next year and for the next 2 years after that. And so on and so forth, right? If you have a Saturn in Capricorn, then your cycle was completed just before the pandemic. If your Saturn is in Aries, you know, you got about 5 to 6 good years before you're going to start really deconstructing and unlearning. That's really what I feel like Saturn returns are for a lot of people. For me personally, having just completed my Saturn return, the first cycle, you know, I had kids very young. You know, I got my degree very quickly. I did a 4-year degree in like 3 years, and then I had a baby right away. And then shortly after I had another baby, I started a business. I felt like my 20s were so grown, you know, and then I turned 28, and then I turned 29, and I had this huge like wake up call that was like, you are not grown. You are nowhere near grown. And I've even had like a lot of life experience growing up. I was a military brat and I moved all the time. So even like that experience, and if you are a military brat, you know, you're kind of forced to grow up a little bit sooner than maybe what you biologically or mentally are prepared for, but you don't really have a choice. You have to just simply deal with it. And so the Saturn return comes around again every 29 years. And it's basically just like, hey, what are you doing with your life? What are you making of all of these experiences that you've had? You know, what research can you apply? Very Aquarius vibe there with the research, but you know, For me, you know, I ended up recently just announced that I've closed my PR agency. You know, I got married during my Saturn return. Just so many very adult experiences happen. I recently actually did a consultation with someone who is in the midst of their second Saturn return, also in Aquarius. And for them, you know, it was really a lot of realization about like the choices that they've made and how they've impacted their physical health, as well as like kind of forgiving themselves for having to let certain things go. And that hit for me too, right? Having recently just let go of my PR agency. This is a business that have had gone now for 7 years of my life I've dedicated to the growth of. And, you know, really just kind of accepting that like this chapter is over. Very Saturnian energy there, right? Like we're done here. This is done. Now, wherever Saturn falls within your birth chart natally is going to give you so much insight on what your Saturn return archetype is going to be focused on. So my Saturn is in the 3rd house. It's also conjunct my natal moon and black moon Lilith. Very complicated territory. But, you know, this 3rd house, it is opposite also to my Chiron wound. And so, you know, for me, you know, really stepping into the limelight, if that's what you can call this, you know, ring light that I have here, stepping into the ring light is what I should say. Stepping into the ring light, launching my company online, Perry Rose Academy. I'm now even setting up in shops and other people's places and events to share my gift, knowledge, wisdom. Someone recently called me an artist and I really wasn't sure how to like accept that. And like receiving, I think, is a major word and a major lesson that comes through when you're experiencing your Saturn return. Because, you know, it's one thing to have a conversation and to workshop with people, but if you're not willing to like receive, you know, whether it's advice or criticism or truth, it doesn't matter. If you're not willing to receive, then you're not growing and you're not doing the work. And so very Saturn return energy right there. During Saturn returns also, you know, it's very, very typical to see people make very significant career moves, whether that's leaving a job or climbing the ladder, so to speak, within the place that they're at. Again, marriage is very common. And again, it will be helpful to figure out where your Saturn and what houses are going to be impacted to help you really understand, right? So let's say you have Saturn in the 10th house. Your Saturn return is going to be very focused on accepting the shortcomings of your career path, you know, dealing with your reputation in the workplace, you know, and it's very, in my experience, common for people with a placement like that to kind of see themselves as failures or not quite good enough when everyone else around them is like, they're the hardest working person I know, right? And so again, it's like kind of applying some wisdom and some knowledge into your life and say like, listen, like, I've been around, okay? Like, I know some things now. Yeah, sure, maybe I knew some things then, but I really know some things now. How can I apply this information to make my life better for the next cycle? Because like I said, should we be so lucky, we get 3 of these cycles. So, you know, if you're at your first Saturn return or you're at your second Saturn return, here is the opportunity to really be very intentional, not just with your energy, but with your actions, with your words, with, you know, the way that you invest, whether it's money or time or, you know, anything, the way that you show up in the world, right? Saturn is a very worldly energy, and it does have a lot to do with like stepping outside of your personal domain, getting a little bit away from your Mercury, getting a little bit away from your moon, and realizing like, you know, what you do, what you say, it has an impact on people. And sometimes those impacts are negative and we have to deal with those consequences, but sometimes they're really positive. And we also have to be willing to receive like the love and, you know, reciprocation of people's joy, which can be very hard for Saturn to do, right? Saturn has a lot of like issues around like worthiness and, you know, I don't want to say deserving, because again, Saturn is a hard-earned gift. So if you are receiving benefits from your Saturn return, right? If you're like, aha, I know this pattern. I've seen this before. This is a lesson I am not repeating again. You know, you have had to have gone through some things to make it to that point, and really just honoring yourself and your process. And, you know, the age portion I think is so brilliant and beautiful too. You know, Julia Fox, who is Hate It or Love It, such a fantastic example of this Aquarius energy that I'm talking about, had recently gone to an event and done an interview where they were talking about aging, and it was like this, you know, they had done gray hair for themselves for this outfit, and they were like, this is a love letter to aging. And, you know, it was profound. It really was, because how many people on the red carpet, in the spotlight, who are models, who are in the art scene, you know, are valuing age. So much value is placed on youth and youthfulness. And, you know, sure, we love that, right? But we also have to apply so much attention, so much more attention into aging. It's important. It happens to all of us. You know, this isn't just about the wrinkles on your face. This is about the wisdom in your heart. This is about the experiences, you know, as we become elders, as we become, you know, ancestors and make this transformational shift. You know, the younger folks, not to be like that, but, you know, the younger crowd, they need advice, they need guidance, they need support, you know, and Saturn is really a very supportive foundational structure. Now, of course, just like us, younger generations don't want to listen to the older ones, but what they will do is they will watch us and they will pay attention to us, and they're learning from us, right? So, you know, if you are willing and able to share your experience, whether you are a queer elder that wants to support your community, whether you are a mom who had babies very young and are supportive of your friends who are having babies in their 40s, wisdom is wisdom. You have earned it. And, you know, the thing about your Saturn return is recognizing, like, as you've gotten older, you have acquired knowledge, you have acquired experiences, and you should use them. You know, really, that's the most important thing, is how can you constructively apply that to your life and not just, you know, continue in autopilot and continue doing what you do. You know, this is kind of around the time where, you know, you do see a lot of people, especially around that second Saturn return, kind of having like a little bit of a midlife crisis, not really sure what to make of themselves, you know, thinking about the second half of their life, which is such a tremendous and very powerful perspective, right? To be almost 60 years old and to say, you know, how do I want the second half of my life to be? That's so profound and to me very beautiful. And, you know, for those of us, again, like me, who have just experienced that first cycle, this is such an opportunity to really like say, what do I want to have in my life? What do I want to see, experience? What do I want to offer and do from the time I'm 30 to the time I'm 60? That's 30 years, right? And if you are in or around or approaching your Saturn return, you know, don't be afraid. You know, Saturn is also very much like fears and boundaries and restrictions and things like that. But, you know, this is meant to be very liberating, empowering. Excuse me. This is a reminder that you're here for a reason and you're living your life every day. And damn it, we should celebrate that, right? So Saturn return, let me bust out my handy dandy little booklet here. I'm excited to see what is mentioned in this little guidebook. I always, as you know, I love the quotes that are always associated. I feel like they hit so perfectly. Saturn return. The quote is from Andy Warhol, a very Aquarian character, very Uranian. They always say time changes things, but actually you have to change them yourself. Wow. That right there, and you know, for the times that we're in, it's such a profound perspective and mindset just to be like, you know, so many of us are walking around right now, whether we're in the United States or another country, and we're like, man, things really need to change. This isn't really working out for everyone, is it? But things don't just magically change, right? We have to put the work in. Saturn as the Lord of Saturn as the Lord of Karma shatters all illusions. It takes approximately 29 years for Saturn to orbit the sun, so the first Saturn return happens around this age. It marks a period of where childish things must be put away. There's no more getting ready to live your life. It is time to live it and be responsible for your own dreams, goals, and affairs. If you hold on to things with no basis in reality, your suffering will grow and depression may follow. You can't escape truth-seeking energy. You must face it. The second Saturn return occurs around the age 60 when you become aware of your own mortality. Like I said, what am I going to do for the second half of my life? You may become keenly aware that you do not have enough time left to achieve goals. Often there is a paring away of what is not essential, but for those who have not acted wisely, this is a difficult transition. You know, and it is. I have seen other people who are in their second Saturn return where the mortality thing is a huge challenge for them to face. They either really tuned into like what their parents died of or dealt with, and they're like, that's probably what's going to happen to me. And it's just like, well, things don't happen to you, right? Like we cause these things to happen. So, you know, if your parents died of alcoholism and you find yourself becoming an alcoholic at this age, you're kind of just following a narrative, right? Like this isn't something that you're actively taking control over in your life. It is happening to you. Something to be very aware of. When this card is drawn, it will feel as though nothing is going right and you could be feeling discouraged. Just as it seems things are progressing, there are obstacles. What it truly is that Saturn is showing you a part of your life that may have not been based upon anything real. It may have outlived its purpose, or perhaps you misjudged a situation thinking it was better than it was. In truth, and Saturn is the planet of truth, Saturn returns are all about correction. Saturn corrects any area that isn't based on reality. It may be romance, business deals, educational paths, partnerships, or marriage. This card is pointing out something in you that may have not been genuine in the first place and that needs to be let go. Whatever is shaky in life will not last, and it's probably not meant to. If this card is drawn, you will not be given a pass, and the matter in question will not progress as easily as you may want it to. But more positively, this marks a time when things are solidified. Whatever you accomplish currently will have permanence to it. You will have worked hard, and your hard work will pay off, gradually growing more successful over time. You may feel a sense of time running out. If any partnership is being formed, that lover or partner could be in a better standing than you, especially financially. Pessimism may figure in. You may be compelled to give up on something that you believed in dearly. Saturn is the planet of time and measure and signifies hair turning gray or skeletal bones and problems. Dental problems are also common with this transit. Hilarious. Because I actually had my first cavity filled in my whole life during my Saturn return. That's hilarious. Saturn tends to bring on rough passages, but also a harvest. You are at a time now when you understand things better than you ever did. It's time to be brave and face important passages. There's no quick fixes. Know what you can and cannot do. Let go of illusions. You're drawn to the brass tacks. It's time to see what you're made of. You know, with all of the water vibes we have going on, Neptune, Jupiter, all of that stuff up in Scorpio, it feels very disconnected from the Saturnian energy, but I think this card has arrived at a perfect time. It's time to show up. It's time to take yourself seriously, be accountable, make amends, hold yourself to the consequences of your actions, and more than anything, think about your future. You know, this card is a great reminder that, you know, when you're manifesting, when you're saying yes to business deals, to look at the bigger picture of your life and how these new opportunities and different experiences will ultimately shape you and lead to a new path of discovery. Saturn return. How do you feel about this? I'd love to know if you'd like to leave me a comment below. If not, I just appreciate you being here. And as always, you know, I am just so grateful that you watched this video, that you've watched any and all of my other videos. It's such a joy to make these for you guys, and I just love showing up every week and being a part of putting this, whatever this is, into the collective. So I'll see you again next week. Bye.